Hi, welcome to Chat with Dr. Kat. I'm Dr. Kat. Welcome. So glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about how you can be an advocate for your child at any age. We're going to briefly talk about the different groups, things that you can do, helpful techniques, questions you can ask teachers, so on and so forth. Even within your own family, what you can do. In future podcasts, we'll break it down to be more specific to age groups. So an entire podcast, say about early childhood development, all the way up to high school, even college. So here's the thing. No judgment, no fluff, just real talk that leads to real change. It's funny. I think I even said that backwards. That's how important it is to say it again. No fluff, no judgment, just real talk that leads to real change. Now, if you want to send in any questions, thoughts, feedbacks, please go to chatwithdrkat.com. You can do it anonymously. You can put in your information, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Keep sending in those requests. This happens to be a big request today. Okay, let's get started. When we look at early childhood development, this is when your child is developing their personality, who they are, so on and so forth. Oftentimes in that early childhood development phase, we can see some behaviors that start coming out. Maybe they're fidgety, maybe they're withdrawn, maybe they're have extra energy, all of these different things that we look at. This is what's important that I always recommend to people that I'm working with. Go get your child allergy tested, food allergy tested. We have a lot of different things in our foods that, quite frankly, I don't trust. I've always been an advocate to not have any artificial dyes. Artificial dyes, there's definitive research that has been around for years and years and years about how it can affect the brain. It's not just about hyperactivity. It really does affect the brain in ways not desirable and doesn't lead to anything good. You know, there was this author years ago, Dr. Feingold, that came out with this diet. There's been controversy over the years about it. Sometimes he's in, sometimes he's out. Bottom line is, he knew what he was talking about. These dyes, terrible. If you can find candies, Jell-O, different things without the red dye 40 especially, that would be best. Okay, why does that affect our kids so much? Well, sometimes allergies manifest behaviorally. They're not just manifesting maybe with itching or rashes or whatever it is, but it does manifest behaviorally. This is a great example. You'll hear me say it throughout different situations. I had a patient years ago who came in, the teacher, when I spoke to the teacher, clear issues of ADHD, especially that H factor, that hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. Okay. Had it at home, had it at school. So normally you'd sit back and say, well, if it's happening and occurring in both locations, more than likely this is what's going on. But I referred those parents to get allergy tested, food allergy tested. What they came back with is that that child was highly allergic to both wheat and milk. What did he have every morning for breakfast? Frosted mini wheats with milk. When he got home from school, what was his snack of choice? Frosted mini wheats with milk. So he had the milk component, the wheat component, and the sugar component. This child would put that into their body, and it would manifest in an out-of-control behavior. Now, we took away all wheat, all dairy products, sugar. Sugar was an occasional thing. What do you think happened? Well, this child pretty much got rid of most behavioral patterns. Now, he had developed some patterns already, so we just had to work with him on how to move away from those patterns. But he didn't have ADHD. So at a young age, I highly, highly recommend go getting food and allergy tested. Here's another thing I really recommend. Sometimes, When they're in kindergarten and first grade and they're writing, remember that paper? It's on the old newsprint. It usually has blue lines, thick like this, light blue lines. Well, if you have a child who's writing diagonally or completely disorganized, a lot of times schools will come back and say, wow, this is a sign of XYZ. Well, it could be a sign that your kid is colorblind and maybe they can't see the blue print. The moment it's now darkened, all of a sudden they're writing in a straight line. So what I'm trying to say is, let's not go to the catastrophic thinking, but let's not go to the negating either. Let's figure out what is going on with your child. So those are some things to rule out at early childhood development. The other thing I would do is, if you have a fellow parent who's volunteering in the classroom and it's somebody that you can trust, ask them what's going on. Say to them, whatever you come up with, please tell me. Whatever you see, tell me. Now, if you're asking somebody, please be willing to hear what they have to say. What they're giving you is valuable information. So maybe there is something going on with the interaction with the teacher or the teacher's assistant. Maybe the teacher is losing patience. Maybe your child is completely acting out. But let's get down to it. Ideally, what you want to do is teacher, parent should be working as a team. Working as a team. Now, before I've talked about the theory of when your floodgates open. So be aware, especially at that young early childhood development phase, we are loving like we've never loved before, and we are mama bears and papa bears. But sometimes that goes a little too far, and we're not really being the advocate our child needs. No one wants to hear that their child is disruptive. Everyone wants to hear that their child is loved because you love them. So let's work together to get them to that place. Here's the other thing. Through all phases, okay, kindergarten all the way up to high school, even to college, you do want your child to be loved. You do want that teacher to see how special they are. Teachers have 30 kids sometimes in a classroom. They have a difficult time focusing on all of them. Now, do I think that that's right, that they lose their patience and everything else? No, but I understand it. I come from a family of educators, so I am a teaching and a teacher advocate. But here's what I say to teachers when I intervene. When people come to me and I start seeing them, whether it's early childhood development all the way up to high school, and I speak to that teacher, here is something I always say. And I encourage you to find the perfect moment to say it. This is what I say. I understand that a lot is going on, especially when you see, on a side note, especially when you see a teacher who is frustrated with your child. And maybe he or she is frustrated because your child is a lot of work. Your child may be pushing them to this point. Now, they're the professional. They should learn how to act appropriately, but they're also human. So you want a positive end result. That's got to be your main focus, positive end result. Ego's got to step out of it a little bit, okay? Here's the message. You want this teacher to be that teacher who took the time and who was an advocate and made a world of difference in that child's life. Not the one when they're 40 years old still describing how this teacher in third grade was horrific to them. That's the message. Now, that's a lot of times when I speak to the teacher, I always say, look, I'm encouraging you to, rise above. I know this kid is driving you crazy. I see it. However, it's someone's child, and we're all in this profession to help children and help kids. Why not choose to be that one that literally takes the time to turn things around? Be that child's advocate. Be the one who is that source of change. Why not be that person? How wonderful is that? Why be the one that's frustrated and angry and all of that? It's a hard message, so you want to work on it, and you'll be hearing it throughout today and several other podcasts in the future. So let's move on a little bit. Now your kids are, third, fourth, fifth grade. I remember when my children were in elementary school and I was talking to a mom on the blacktop. And again, we're going to have another one on blacktop mamas. And I said to her, hey, how's it going? I haven't caught up with you in a while. Are you excited about next year? The kids, still same elementary school, K through 8. Are you excited about your child going into middle school? And she looked at me and she says, you know what, we're leaving the school. And I said, oh, wow, we're going to miss you. And I said, may I ask you why? And she said, yes, absolutely. We've had a great experience at the school with my older daughter. And now my son, he's a little rambunctious. And I just feel like at this point, after being here since kindergarten, he's been pigeonholed. Now I know he's feisty. He can wreak some havoc here and there, but he needs a clean slate. He needs to go into a classroom where no one knows the last 5 years, 6 years, where they're going to give him an opportunity to have that clean slate and to create a new reputation for himself. Why I want to give you that example is I was impressed with that parent, impressed. The reason why is because she was more focused on creating that clean slate for her child, giving him an opportunity to have a middle school experience better than what he was going to receive. Not because the teachers there were bad, they were amazing. But she focused more on that than being worried about leaving her community. The people that were important to her were going to remain important to her, and the ones that were going to judge, goodbye, no need, right? She took that opportunity to advocate for her child. Vital and important. Why do I say this to you? Sometimes your child needs a change. If they feel that is not the best location for them, then it's not. Move on. I will even share with you, I remember with one of my children, she was having a lot of issues with different things going on. And I remember going in and I'm speaking to the principal and I thought to myself, I don't know if he's really listening to me. So I stopped and I looked at him and I said, it really sounds like you think my kid is a flake and that I'm the parent who backs up the flake. And he looked at me and he goes, kind of. And I said, wow, thank you for the honesty. I didn't explode. I didn't get angry, but I did look at him and I said, thank you for the honesty, because now I know what I'm dealing with. Now I know I need to be even more of an advocate for her. It's not okay for them to pigeonhole children. It's the child. It's the child. They need an opportunity for clean slates. They need an opportunity to prove themselves. If you keep putting them in an environment where it's like, oh, there you go, it's not good for them. It's just not good for them. So sometimes finding change is better. Now, there is a social component. You don't want to take away social either. However, it's like this. Let me back up a little. If a kid is getting bullied over and over and over again, doesn't want to go to school, yet is thriving with straight A's, you may want to move that child. Social is vital. It's forming who they are, their ego strength. The education part may be spectacular, but if this factor is horrible, you may want to move them. It's the same thing. If academically things are not great, no one is believing them, no one is backing them up, there isn't a teacher that you would say, wow, this one wants to be that child's advocate, even though they have social, the parent's fear is, I can't move them because they have all their friends. I'm telling you right now, moving them to an environment where they're seen, where they're heard, where they're allowed to be a success, a lot of that other will follow. If it doesn't, then we got to look at that again. But a lot of times it will follow. It's just a hard choice to make. Now, you go in and you speak to the teacher. Teacher tells you, your child is disruptive. I feel like it's all day long. I'm struggling. I'm not able to control the classroom because your child is doing da 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 da. Okay. Listen to them. Apologize. Say, I am so sorry that this is happening. So sorry. Listen to what the teacher has to say. Then come in as the advocate and say a couple of things. This is what I recommend. Parts of the classroom my child really likes. Let me tell you what they like about the classroom and what they like with you as the teacher. Name it. Find something positive. Go in prepared with something positive. Then lead into where my child is struggling. Stay away from, what my kid hates? What my kid doesn't like at all? Move away from that. Just say where my child is struggling is, I think sometimes, when something happens and you choose to approach him or her this way, she tends to freeze and it won't be effective. Or when you call on her in front of the class, there's some things going on, maybe with some boys, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If that happens, if you don't mind, could you bring her up maybe when the kids are doing silent work, or maybe after class, or if they have an X block, where they have that extra time? Ask her the information. If you don't mind, take that extra time. You will see she does know what she's talking about. But for some reason, the embarrassment in the classroom overrules it. I'm just thinking maybe we could work together. What could we do to advocate for what you have? One of the things I'm thinking is we'll go over the class rules. Every day before he gets out of the car, we'll go over those rules. We want to be an advocate because in our household, respect of the teacher is of the utmost. Why do you say all those things? Well, the teacher is human. You want to be able to get to your end result, and your end result is your child having a better experience. A lot of times, that phrase, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar? Well, it applies. You want to go in. You want to work as a team. Here's another phrase. If you have to speak to a principal or you have to speak to the dean. Now, I hear that my child is disruptive. The child is there 6 hours during the day. Would you say, if you accumulate all the time that they're disruptive, is it about an hour? Is it about 2 hours? They may say, oh, yes, of course, yes, 2 hours. That's a long time. Well, 2 hours, okay. Then you have an hour lunch, nutrition, recess. Okay, that's now 3 hours. The kid is there 6 hours. What goes on the other 3 hours? Is the child listening? Is the child functioning? Is the child appropriate? So now we look at it, we step back and we say, okay, 50% of the time, the child is doing well. What's going on in the environment that the child is doing well? What's going on in this environment where the child is not doing well? Let's focus more on achieving this environment than this environment. Now, I know it sounds simple, but it brings people to the knowledge that the kid is not inappropriate all day long. People like to speak in alls and everythings and all the time, when really we got to reduce it and find out what's really going on. Here's another tip that works for middle school and high school. When you're in with your child, with the principal, with the dean, and your child is maybe slouching a bit, it's a great idea to look at your child and say, please sit up. Please show who we are here with respect. I want you to have eye contact. What that does is it now sets the tone that you are an active parent that expects respect. They'll sit back and they're like, okay. They're worried that it's a parent going, well, what are you doing? What is it that you're doing to my child? Okay. That's where they shut down. They don't want to do things. They just want to get through the meeting and get out. They don't want to be disrespected. I get it. So you always want to go in with, how am I going to get the end result I want? So high school, how can you be an advocate for your child? If you know that your child struggles a little bit academically, start the year off with emails to those teachers. Let them know. If your child gets a little bit nervous, maybe you don't want to call it anxiety, but gets nervous, and you say, this is what happens. My child then wants to go to the bathroom, or my child needs to step back, take a deep breath. Start from the beginning of the year with an expectation that the teacher knows what's going on with your child. They can't guess. They've got 30 students each class. If they have 4 classes a day, that's a tremendous amount of kids. So if you give them this information, they now know. You're already creating the team approach between the child, the parent, and the teacher. Oftentimes, children don't want you to do that, but I really do recommend it. I really do recommend it. Also, have check-in times. If you have a child who maybe doesn't turn in homework on time, struggles academically, every week have a check-in time. Now, I recommend your check-in times not on Friday. Make it Wednesday. Make it Monday. So you have some days to fix it. If things haven't been turned in, something's going wrong, you have a few days to fix it. When parents pick a Friday, which a lot of times they do, they'd have the weekend. So now they're struggling, there's tension in the house, there's frustration. Now maybe the kid is grounded when maybe it was a mistake of the teacher. And then you find out after the weekend, okay? Do it during the week. That's what I advocate for. Now, on extreme cases of behavioral issues, say they call you in and they say, oh, my child, your child was caught in the bathroom doing XYZ. We brought a group of children in and the breathalyzer was positive. Okay. When you come in to speak to them, here's another technique when it's something really serious, or maybe they say there was a fist fight, whatever it is. You look over at your child and maybe your child is going like this. You don't know what's going on, okay? But your child, you know your child. Now, you don't know everything about your child. A lot of times we think we do. But if you have that trust with your child and you look at them and they're like, I don't know what's going on here. They need you to be an advocate. Now you walk in there, you're anxious, you're nervous, the drive from work, the drive from home, the drive from the store, you're nervous because you're hearing things that you can't believe is your child. When you get into that room, say to them, I need a moment. Sit back, just say, I need silence for 10 seconds, please. What you're showing them to do is for them to also take a deep breath. Now, with that comes confidence. It's okay, you may feel a little bit embarrassed, but I'm telling you that 10 to 15 seconds reduces the stress and tension in the room of absolutely everything. It also shows you're powerful. You are powerful. So now you sit there, you listen. You listen to the child. If the child comes back, they're a little snarky, great opportunity, sit up straight, address the teacher, the principal, the dean appropriately. Again, you're demonstrating that you are a parent who is advocating for them, but you're also advocating, more importantly, for your child. Sit up straight. Now, if they accuse your child of whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, and they say, oh, the breathalyzer says whatever. The moment you leave there, I recommend you go take that child to the doctor, get a urine test, and get a blood test. Now, if it's positive, You need to be able to talk to your child. You need to be able to intervene and find out why your child is doing what they are doing. Now, if it comes back negative, you've got information to go back in because that was a false positive, which if you look at it statistically, a lot of times it's more false than it is positive. You got to be an advocate for your child. Now, here comes the next conversation. Why was your child in that environment? If your child was with a group of people that were getting caught and they clumped them all together, it's another great opportunity to talk to your child and say, you are who you are around. If that's the reputation you don't want to be caught in trouble with those other kids, you need to choose friends more wisely. Everything becomes a teachable moment. Okay? But more importantly, you've got to be that advocate for your child. Now, here's the last big thing that I'm going to talk about. Read that manual, that student handbook, that parent handbook that they give you. Sometimes that information can save you in a situation. If you have a dean that's coming in hot, angry, frustrated, and they're making decisions, go back, read that student handbook. There could be something in there that you hadn't seen before that actually takes away some of the punishment that your child is getting, even if it's by, guilty by default or association. Read the handbook. Always read the handbook. See if there's something there. There could be something like mental health, mental wellness that says, if you ever find yourself in a situation of being stressed, overly stressed, come and speak to us. We're going to handle it a little bit differently. Find those little things that can help your child. Now, everything I talked about, very brief. A lot of easy tools, some difficult tools. Here it is in a nutshell. Your child needs to know that you're an advocate, whether you are disciplining them for wrong choices, bad choices, you're loving them through the process, you're angry at them through the process, but advocate for them. When you go into the schools, go in with the knowledge that you want to work as a team. If you go in hot and heavy, they're going to shut you down. They may still shut you down, okay? We don't know. But walk in there with integrity and with the focus to be an advocate for your child. It's not easy being a parent. And if you do it right, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So send in your questions. Thank you so much. We got quite a few people talking about how to be an advocate for your child. I will break it down in future ones, specifically more about early childhood development into high school and then ultimately in college. That one's hard because they're away, professors don't talk to you, but how you can be an advocate for your child. So again, no fluff, no judgment, just real talk leading to real change. Go to chatwithdrkat.com, put in your questions, feedback, let me know. Even when you look over at the podcast, if you have a question, put it in. I'll answer. Have a wonderful day.